Good afternoon, everyone. Decided to try something new today, and that is start making some videos of me flying in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. I'm just learning the recording software, so it's a bit of a learning curve to it. So I thought my first video would be taking you folks on a scenic tour of New York. Um, it's kind of interesting to see how good the scenery is in this flight simulator. Those that know me have heard me drone on at length about how realistic it is. So I'm going to give you guys a chance to experience it. And today I'm going to be in a Cessna 172 with retractable gear, and we're going to be departing out of LaGuardia. Right now I'm sitting at the ramp and just looking at the different gates, and we're going to do an engine start and get airborne. It's a bit windy today. The winds are about 14 knots, gusting 21. So it's be a bit of a rough ride. I'm also flying in VR, and I'm using the Pimax Crystal headset. So let's get this thing started. So and bring on our power. And beacon light is coming on. Parking brake is set. And we'll start the engine. All right. This is a nice little aircraft to fly for sightseeing. As you can see, it's a high wing aircraft. Other types are low wing aircraft. That does tend to obstruct your view a little bit, but these are nice for the purpose that I'm going to use it for today. All right. GPS is firing up. So I'm going to release the parking brake, and we'll start heading out to the runway. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to bring up my VFR map. This gives me access to all the instrument charts, as well as the different types of maps that pilots use. This is called a VFR map, which is VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. And I'm just going to double check the weather. Now you guys probably won't be able to see the fine detail of this screen, but that's okay. So I'll bring up LaGuardia Airport, click on weather. Now this is really small print, so I'm going to lean in. Yeah, so the winds are at 320 degrees, they're 14, gusting 24 knots. So those are pretty strong winds, and we're going to be taking off on runway 31. And those numbers refer to the compass orientation of the runway. So runway 31 is oriented on a heading of 310 degrees. The knots are coming from the 320 degrees, so just a slight crosswind. All right. Let's bring up the airport diagram as well. So this is the airport diagram, and I don't know if you can see, but this little magenta triangle here represents my aircraft, and we're going to be taxiing right over here. I'm not sure if you're aware, but when you taxi an aircraft on the ground, you are using your feet to use manipulate the rudder pedals. That controls the nose wheel of the aircraft, and that's how you steer it on the ground. Notice my hand. Well, you can't see my hands in VR, but my hands are odd on the control yoke, which is this is the control yoke right here. If you look at the rudder pedals, you can see my feet maneuvering them, and that maneuvers the aircraft. So this is the stop bars for runway 31. In real life, or if I was flying on the VATSIM network, which I'll explain later on sometime, I do plan to maybe do some flights and try to record those on the VATSIM network. When you're under the direction of air traffic control, you cannot proceed onto the runway without clearance from an air traffic controller. So, but we don't have to worry about that today. Before I get airborne, I'm just going to give you a brief orientation of the instruments in case you're not used to what they are. Over here is my airspeed indicator. This is the attitude indicator, which shows you the spatial orientation of the aircraft, whether nose up, nose down, whether it's in a bank left or right. This is my altimeter, which I'm going to just double check and make sure is set to the current barometric pressure. This is called a VOR receiver. I'm not going to bother explaining exactly what that does, maybe some other time. This is a horizontal or directional gyro, correction. In different aircraft, more advanced models would be called a horizontal situational indicator. This is just called a directional gyro. This is the vertical speed indicator, and it shows me whether I'm climbing or descending or in level flight. And this is the GPS unit. These are the radios, both communications and navigation. That's really all we need right now. I'm gonna turn on my lights and just check and make sure there's no traffic on approach, and I don't really have to worry about that in the sim for this flight because I don't have any traffic selected. Again, if I were flying on the VATSIM network, you'd always want to double check and make sure there's no traffic on approach, even if you had clearance from air traffic control to either take off or what they call line up and wait. You always want to make sure. You can see the big numbers there, 3-1. Okay, get lined up. So we're pointing straight down the runway, and then I'm going to slowly add power. Let that engine spool up and bring it up to full power. Watching my airspeed. There's 60 knots, and we can pull back on the yoke and rotate. And now we're airborne. And there's positive rate of climb, and so I'm going to retract the gear. This aircraft does have retractable gear. Looking straight at my altimeter, this instrument here, I'm climbing through 400 feet. We'll climb up to about 2,000 feet for a little aerial tour. And I'm going to set the autopilot for the altitude hold at 2,000 feet. Bring my head inward around. So I'm climbing at just under 1,500 feet per minute. I'm climbing through 1,100 feet. And I'm flying pretty much level. So, as I look out to the left, you can see Manhattan. It's pretty obvious. This is Queens. Both New York airports are located in the borough of Queens. And that's LaGuardia, which we just departed from, and JFK, or Kennedy. So, I'm going to level off. Bring my power back. So I want to focus this flight more on the sightseeing aspect versus the flying aspect, although I probably will give some narration as I go along. So I'm going to engage the autopilot so it can control the aircraft and I can focus on doing the sightseeing aspect of it. So we're currently just under about 125 knots. So this is currently the Bronx that we're flying over right now. And I'll show you Yankee Stadium. It's going to be on our left here. So that's Yankee Stadium coming into view in the South Bronx. Let's see if we can fly right over it, get a look inside it. You can see that's actually a subway track that you're looking at beside Yankee Stadium, and the subway stops right there at Yankee Stadium. It's the number 4 train that you would take from Manhattan. And that's at 161st Street and River Avenue in the South Bronx. So there is LaGuardia right ahead of me. LaGuardia has 2 runways, 0422 and 31 and 13. Now I say those 4 numbers I mentioned. A runway is one single runway is numbered at both ends, and that's based on the compass orientation. So runway 31, which is the one that we departed off of, if I were to come in from this approach, it would be landing on runway 13. Which is 180 degrees opposite of 310 degrees. And the other runway is 22, which you can see the approach end of 22 right straight ahead. And then the opposite end would be 04. I believe that's Rikers Island right down there. And this is the East River that we're flying over. And out to our left is the borough of the Bronx, which is the only part of New York City that's actually the mainland. All the other boroughs, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, are actually islands. Brooklyn and Queens are one big island. Just going to make a turn to the north here. Fly over the Bronx a little bit. If you're wondering what that beeping is, that's actually kind of an antiquated part of what's called the Instrument Landing System, or ILS. And the ILS is a certain particular type of instrument approach which gives pilots vertical and horizontal guidance into the runway. And they have what's known as inner, outer, and middle markers, and those will beep when you're flying over those markers. Give you an idea of your proximity to the landing portion of the runway, or the touchdown point, or the threshold. So we're over the Bronx right now. Bronx has some nice areas if you're ever there to visit. I highly recommend checking out Arthur Avenue, located in the Fordham section of the Bronx. That's also known as the Bronx Little Italy. Beautiful little neighborhood. The Bronx Zoo, oddly enough, it's located in the Bronx. I'm not sure if I can spot the Bronx Zoo. That might be it that I'm looking at now. I'm not sure. I don't know the Bronx that well from the air, so I'm going to make a turn to the east. Sorry, correction, turn to the west. see the subway lines down there. And that is the Hudson River right ahead of us. And then George Washington Bridge is that large bridge that crosses the northern tip of Manhattan. It runs through the I-95 runs through the Bronx, the South Bronx, and then becomes the George Washington Bridge and continues on into New Jersey. This portion of the I-95 is known as the Cross Bronx Expressway. I sat on the Cross Bronx Expressway one time for a couple of hours in stop-and-go traffic. It was pretty brutal. The worst traffic I've been in. And it's notorious. The Cross Bronx is notorious for traffic. So that river that we're looking at is the Harlem River, separates the Bronx and Manhattan, the northern tip of Manhattan. And over here, and there is the very northern tip of Manhattan right there. You see the river, the Bronx River winding north and then takes a turn to the west and joins with the Hudson River. So that's the GWB, George Washington. Now, if you're wondering what that curtain-like thing is below the deck to the water, I believe that's so that I don't think Microsoft Flight Simulator wants people flying underneath bridges, and I'm not sure why, where it's just a stem, but I think those are there to prevent that. I've never flown into one, so I don't know what would happen if it would just simulate the aircraft crashing and stop the sim, but I think that's what those, I'm going to call them, curtains are. So now we're turning right along the Hudson River. New Jersey will be to the right and Manhattan to the left. The west side of Manhattan is the area of Manhattan that's in the foreground, and then the east side in the background. Let's hold. This is the upper Manhattan. And this area, I'll just turn over here so you can see, I'll show you Harlem. So this, I don't know if you can make it out, but this street right down that I'm looking at is sort of in the center of my vision. There's a tall building there. That's 125th Street, and that's a main drag through Harlem. It's pretty cool to traverse it. Cool neighborhood. And that bridge that's coming into view now with the two larger green support towers, that's the RFK Triborough Bridge, the Bronx-Manhattan portion of it. All right, let's go turn around and head back down the southern, back down along Manhattan. Those are the toll plazas for the RFK Triborough that we're looking at. Those wide portions with the structure going across them. It can, in the RFK Triborough Bridge connects Manhattan, the Bronx, and Queens. Looking to our west right now. Pretty nice day, as you can see. I'm using what's real world weather. You can have you can use real world weather, which downloads the current weather anywhere on the planet in Microsoft Flight Sim, or you can create your own custom weather, or you can use weather presets. I like flying in real world weather. Today it's a nice clear day, but it is quite breezy, as I mentioned. So this is Central Park that we're just coming up on now. It's a pretty big park, stretches from 60th Street up to 110th Street. So 60 blocks in its length, several blocks in its width. Some ball fields down there. Nice big lake. So we're looking at the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which is east of the park. And then directly across the river would be Queens. There's Bethesda Fountain down there, that reddish sort of area. And now we're coming over Midtown Manhattan. There's the Empire State Building. And I'm going to look for the New Yorker Hotel, which is where I normally stay when I go to New York. And I may not be able to point it out real well. Actually, yeah, there's Madison Square Garden, that round building. And then right below that, and I'm going to try and look straight at it, right down there now. It's hard to really see if you don't know what you're looking for. That's the New Yorker Hotel. That's Bryant Park. Or no, actually, let's see if I can locate Bryant Park. That's a beautiful spot to hang out. And it's located off of 6th Avenue, between 42nd Street and about 40th Street. And the New York Public Library is located on 42nd Street between 6th and 5th, right at the western end of Bryant Park. If you're in New York, I highly recommend checking out the New York Public Library, the 42nd Street Library. It's a beautiful location. There's a section in there, and there's like the original Declaration of Independence. There's the original stuffed animals that made up the Winnie the Pooh, and oh, it's pretty amazing. This bridge that I'm looking straight at right now, that's the East River, by the way, and that's the 59th Street Bridge, also known as the Queensboro Bridge. So the Empire State Building is located at 34th and 5th Avenue. There's the MetLife Building. Christ coming into view. And there's Bryant Park right there. I don't know if you can see it, but that little clump of trees in amongst those buildings, that's Bryant Park. Bank of America Tower beside it. I'll see if I can. See if I can fly over it. I love going there and just grabbing a latte and people watching. It's a beautiful park. That building with the green pyramidal shaped top is known as the Worldwide Plaza. there is Bryant Park right down there, when that's that clump of trees with the New York Public Library, the western end of it. Alright, let's head towards Lower Manhattan. Once again, New Jersey off to the right. There's Madison Square Garden. And so the New Yorker just coming into view, but I know where I'm looking, what I'm looking for. So, and I realize you don't have the same visual resolution that I'm seeing, so it might be hard to make out some of these things that I'm pointing out. Well, that's okay. These are I'm currently looking at the three lower East River bridges. This bridge right here is known as the Williamsburg Bridge, connects Manhattan to Williamsburg, Brooklyn. This is the Manhattan Bridge. And then the one next to it is the Brooklyn Bridge. That's the Freedom Tower. I'm just going to steer a little bit away from that. I don't want to clip the... I think I'll clear it, but I don't want to clip the aerial. Yeah. Those are pretty iconic bridges. So this is downtown or Lower Manhattan. That's the Freedom Tower right there with the big aerial, the tallest building that we're looking at. And that's Battery Park, the southernmost tip of Manhattan. It's a beautiful spot to hang out. This is Governor's Island that we're just about to fly over now. Brooklyn to my left. Staten Island is just off at my 1 o'clock with the bridge connecting the two. That's the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. And let's check out the Statue of Liberty. There is the Statue of Liberty right there, coming into view. And Ellis Island to the right of it, or to the north. Looks like some boats in the water. Brooklyn waterfront. Fly over towards Staten Island. There's not much to see there. It's predominantly a residential borough. Used to be the residence of Big Paul Castellano, who was the boss of the Gambino crime family from 1976 or 77 to 1985, when John Gotti had him shot outside of Sparks Steakhouse on 46th Street in Manhattan. Big Paul and his driver Tommy Bellotti were shot to death December 16, 1985. A pretty notable mob hit, and then John Gotti took control of the Gambino crime family until 1992, when he was convicted and sent to prison for life, where he died from cancer, I believe. Once again, Brooklyn to the left, Staten Island to my 12 o'clock, in New Jersey over to my right. that's Staten Island. Again, predominantly a residential borough. I've never really been over there. I guess I've never really had the urge to go over there. You can take the Staten Island ferry from Battery Park and come over and maybe explore around if that was something one would be interested in. And take the ferry back. Something I've never done, but I might do at some point, possibly. We're basically heading in a southwesterly direction. And that is the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Now, this next area I'm going to show you is Coney Island. It is the playground for New Yorkers. It's a beautiful beachfront, and it's located on the southern tip of Brooklyn. You can get to Coney Island from Manhattan by taking the D train, and the D service terminates at the Stillwell Avenue station right on Coney Island. You come out of the station, you'll see Nathan's Famous Hot Dogs, their flagship location, which is where they hold the famous hot dog eating contest every year. And you can grab a chili dog and then head a couple of blocks down to the beachfront, the boardwalk area. It's absolutely beautiful. Also home of the Brooklyn Cyclones, the farm team for the New York Mets. They play at, used to be Keyspan Park, but now I believe it's MCU Park, which I might be able to show you. So there's the beachfront. See this red tower-like structure? I'm not sure if you can make it out. It's kind of a famous Coney Island landmark where the people would be hoisted up to the top of it and then parachute down, I guess free fall. Coney Island is also has a neighborhood known as Brighton Beach, home of the Russian mob. Yeah, there is MCU Park, and that red tall structure, tower-like structure, that is this, I forget what it's called, but it's famous Coney Island landmark. And there's a bunch of amusement rides, as you can perhaps see. And there's the Stillwell Avenue station. I'm not sure if you can make it out, but it's where the D service terminates. It's kind of a fun ride too. Explore, you get to see a bit of the borough of Brooklyn as you're on a good portion of the D line in Brooklyn is elevated, not below ground. So Brooklyn is a pretty large borough of New York. Manhattan off in the distance. So I'm going to head back to LaGuardia inland, and I'm just looking to see where Kennedy is. Just 1 second. Yeah, Kennedy is off at about my 3 o'clock, 2 or 3 o'clock. Kind of hard to make out from this position, but it's over there. All right. I'm just going to bring up the approach plate 4. 31. All right, so I'm going to head over to LaGuardia, which is about my 1 o'clock. Descend down to about 1,300 feet. What I'm looking at now is it's an instrument approach chart for the runway that we're going to be landing on. Just to see where I'm at. So I'm going to be doing a visual approach, which means I don't use any instruments. Instrument guidance for the landing. I just use all visual references. Once again, we're still over Brooklyn. I'm starting to slow down to get ready to configure the aircraft for the landing. That's Kennedy Airport right there at my 3 o'clock. I don't know how well you can see it, but there it is. Pretty big airport. Much bigger than LaGuardia. Start slowing down so I can start deploying the flaps. Flaps help slow you down and give you more lift so that you can fly at slower speeds to land. We're going to gear down. Gear down is selected. And confirmed. Disengaging the autopilot. Adding my first increment of flaps. Starting my descent. Oh, by the way, that looks like that is Citi Field coming up right ahead of me with the National Tennis Center just before it. LaGuardia right there, basically at a roughly a 90-degree angle to runway 31, our landing runway. There is there and Citi Field right there. Flaps are deployed. Start our turn to final. Definitely is a windy day, so this is going to be a bit bouncy. Especially in a small aircraft like this, you really feel it. A little bit too low on the approach, so I'm just correcting for that. Now I'm looking good. The things to look out for when you're landing, you want to try to keep the aircraft on the center line of the runway and keep it on the proper descent path. And I don't know if you can make it out. There's to the right of the runway, there's 4 lights. Right now we're seeing 3 whites and 1 red. Ideally you want to see those indicating 2 red and 2 white, and that indicates that you're on the proper descent path. Right now I'm just a bit high. If you're seeing 3 white and 1 red, you're a little high. If you see 4 white, you're too high. If you see 3 red and 1 white, you're too low. Or a little low. If you see 4 red, you're too low. You want 2 reds and 2 whites. And this is not terrible, great landing. But crossing the threshold of the runway on the center line. Just bringing the power back. Let the aircraft just gently settle down on the runway. Down. Okay. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed the little scenic tour of New York. This video is more focused on sightseeing than the technical aspects of flying. But like I say, I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe tune in next time. Cheers, everyone.